So today on this landscape lowdown, I'm going to talk about, can you cut the top off of a tree? What we call this in the landscape industry is called tree topping. So what is tree topping? So basically it means that you've cut the tree down to stumps at the top of where the tree starts beginning to split off into different areas. That's probably the best description of it. You can just see that there's stumps and there's like a ball that's been created and all these little shoots are coming off the end of it. And it's been pruned that way year after year after year, and it starts becoming a basically just a big mass of healed over wood. We don't like to promote that. We don't like to see that happen, and there's reasons for it. First off, in the most severe cases, topping can actually lead to the death of a tree. So it can create those wounds like I talked about that healed over. That can actually create pockets where there's lots of opportunities for disease and insects to get into that tree and create more issues later. The second main thing is it creates an unsafe structure. And so when you top a tree, that means that it causes a quick regeneration of growth, and it's often dense and often weak. So when you cut something off, the tree is actually going to try to regenerate that limb that you cut off essentially really quickly, so it can regenerate some more energy to take back into its system. So it will shoot out a bunch of new growth, and they're very weakly attached. They're not strong. It also can regain its original height really quickly anyways. So it oftentimes when you're talking about topping, that means that they've taken the tree and you've actually tried to make it smaller by just really taking it and just cutting off really hard limbs, big limbs, and just trying to reduce it that way. And that's not the best way to do it. Oftentimes topping creates a decline in health, and basically topping, like it talked about, removes the tree's food production factory. So the food production factory are the leaves of the tree. So when you take those away, that any of that food stored is actually not there, and it wants to regenerate. And then on the aesthetic end of things, topping trees just creates an ugly, unnatural form. Value is another thing, because of the negative impacts on appearance and structure and health. This type of pruning or topping can definitely decrease the value of that tree in a space. So the last thing is insects and disease. The drastic removal of limbs by topping exposes the remaining limbs to sunshine. So this sudden exposure to light and heat can kill or damage a tree's living tissue. So that's the inner bark and the cambium. So when you cut that, you actually expose those inside portions of the tree. It can also create what is called sun scald. So it'll actually burn basically the inner cambium of the tree. The sun scald wounds are actually, and any wounds actually are very highly vulnerable to that insect infestation and the spores from fungi, and also susceptible to the decay from fungi. So the long story short is, don't top your trees. And these trees are really tough to replace. You cut down a large tree that's been topped for a long time, it's hard to see it go because it provided shade for you. It provided a lot of things, maybe even sentimental value to you. So you know, you don't like to see them go, and they take years and years to grow. And so we want to see those trees last. How do you prevent tree topping? The main thing is to prevent tree topping is that you should plant a tree in the right location. So do your research, try to plant it in a spot where it's not going to get too big for the space, and that will eliminate a lot of the need for reducing the size of the tree. You know, buy quality nursery stock. Make sure you're buying the nursery stock that makes sense for your space, and that's has had a good structural form from the get-go. They've pruned it correctly as it's gone along, as it's gotten bigger in the nursery. So you want to look for that as well. And when you do have a young tree, make sure you're pruning it well yourself, and the landscape professionals that you have on your site are pruning it correctly as it grows. Also, making sure that you're paying attention to utilities in the area when you're planting your tree, or when your landscape professional is planting the tree. You want to make sure that you're checking that out too, looking above you. If there's a power line, that means that more than likely, if you put a shade tree underneath that power line, they're going to slice it right down through the middle, and they're going to do their best to prune it correctly typically, but there are some companies that'll come in and just slice it in a big V, or take the whole thing out of it, and the whole side of it, and that's what you have. So you want to be careful where you plant these trees. At the end of the day is that you should probably just, when you're talking about pruning a large tree, is that you should get a qualified arborist, somebody that is licensed, somebody that knows their stuff and has a good reputation and prunes well in your area. So keep that all in mind. And if you have any other questions or anything like that, please comment, message us, get a hold of us. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on this. That's one of the things that I'm kind of passionate about, is tree pruning. A lot of people call me a tree hugger, but I really appreciate the value of a tree and in the landscape, and I want to see them grow the way they should. And if you need any recommendations on a good arborist, please let us know, and we will try to point you in the right direction. We'll catch you later. Thanks for watching.